We'll now look at the axial rotation range of motion of the spine. My model is going to demonstrate a spine twist. And we'll take a look at each portion of the spine as he moves into the twist. So we'll begin with the cervical portion. So as he moves his head to look over his shoulder, we see the cervical range of motion with the axial rotation. And the cervical spine has about 50 degrees available to it in terms of axial rotation. And this is really nice. This is what allows you to move your head basically, from side to side to look over your shoulder. And also in yoga, where you see this nice available range of motion to the cervical spine. When it comes to the thoracic spine, as my model here moves deeper into this posture, the thoracic spine has about 35 degrees of axial rotation available to it. And then finally, to finish out this entire spine twist, the lumbar spine only has 5 degrees of axial rotation. Remember we talked about the anatomy of the spine and I highlighted the way that the facet joints are oriented on the lumbar spine? Those facet joints are basically straight up and down with those curved surfaces, so they don't really allow those lumbar vertebrae to rotate against one another. And we can really see this here in this demonstration. So any range of motion that we see twisting or coming from the lower body here, the majority of it is coming from the hips. So the lower spine really only moved a small percentage, even as my model tried to finish the remaining portion of this posture. We can now look at lateral flexion range of motion of the spine. Here my model is going to demonstrate a crescent pose. So we can begin by looking at lateral flexion of the neck. So go ahead and bring your arms over your head, and we'll just enter this one maybe a little different than what you're used to in yoga. What we're trying to break down the spine here. So just laterally flex your head. Just move your head to the side. And we have about 35 degrees of lateral flexion available in the cervical spine. And then as my model moves into this posture, pay attention to the thoracic spine, the middle portion of the spine. And here we have about 20 degrees of lateral flexion available. And then finally, we have about 20 degrees of lateral flexion available in the lumbar spine. So the majority of this posture, really the side bend, is coming from the cervical spine. The thoracic and the lumbar spine basically have the same amount of lateral flexion available to it. And in total, the entire spine really can only laterally flex about 75 degrees. So what did we learn from this exercise? First is that the spine has the greatest range of motion capacity in flexion, and with the lumbar spine having the greatest capacity in flexion of any other type of spinal movement. The spine has the least range of motion in lateral flexion, this side-to-side motion. And then the cervical spine, the upper spine, has the greatest range of motion in extension, axial rotation, as well as lateral flexion. And that kind of makes really good sense, right? All of our sense organs are situated on our head. So it's the cervical spine which allows all of this great deal of range of motion so that we can turn our heads and interact with the environment around us.